Welcome to Beyond Tech, where innovation meets insight.
We're your hosts, Jennifer Palumbo and Jackie Slaght, and we bring curiosity, clarity, and a passion for technology-driven storytelling to every conversation.
We're thrilled to welcome back to the podcast our first repeat guest, Matt Wise, CEO of eTech Group. Matt has led eTech Group since 2020 and brings over 20 years of executive experience across advanced manufacturing, software, and digital marketing. Under his leadership, the company has grown to more than 750 professionals in over 35 locations across the globe, delivering automation solutions to the industries of life sciences, food and beverage, mission critical, and more.
And alongside Matt, we have Fred Fontaine. Fred is the president of eTech Group. He's been president since 2021 and brings more than 25 years of experience in automation and control systems. Under Fred's leadership, the company continues to deliver innovative solutions across life sciences, food and beverage, mission critical, and other key industries. Thank you, Matt and Fred, for making some time for us today.
Thanks for having us, Jen and Jackie.
I'm excited to have you guys both here for our special year-end wrap-up episode. We're approaching the end of 2025 and looking ahead to what's shaping automation in 2026 and beyond. During the conversation today, we're going to talk about the state of the industry, its biggest challenges, innovations, and opportunities, and highlight the trends that are driving the next chapter: AI and machine learning, IT/OT convergence, and the push to delivering meaningful data to the right people at the right time. We're also going to touch a little bit on cybersecurity, sustainability, and energy management, and the workforce transformation. All of these critical forces are shaping how companies adapt and thrive. So with that, let's get into the conversation.
All right. First question, Matt, Fred, whichever one of you feels most inspired to lead. What has surprised you most about the automation and system integration industry in 2025?
I'll dive in with an item that I don't know if it surprised me the most, but I was thrilled the most to find out that we won System Integrator of the Year in 2025. And we became the first company to get the CSIA's Enterprise Audit certification. So I'll put those as surprising facts for the rest of the industry, but of course we internally are thrilled about them. Maybe just a reflection outside of us, though, on the industry itself. If I had one surprise, it's probably the obsession with AI. It's not so much that AI wasn't coming along and AI wasn't becoming more popular, but you couldn't get past a podcast, you couldn't get past an article about manufacturing without hearing about AI. And I know we've got some other questions on it, but just from a attention consumption time, AI was just took up a disproportionate amount of time this year.
Yeah.
Interesting. For me, it would be the explosion in data centers. And at first you may say, well, data centers has been growing at a rapid rate. Why would it surprise you? It has accelerated so much in the past year, even in the second half of the year, where these campuses are just being built everywhere. Just seems to be no end in sight to the just incredible growth in data centers. And of course, to Matt's point, right, some of that is being driven by this AI frenzy, AI revolution, NVIDIA introducing their GPU pods. So AI is supposedly, and I say that, driving a lot of the data center growth, because it's interesting. If you look at a lot of the statistics, 90% of the AI projects never really get off the ground. So There does seem to be a little bit of disconnect between so there's a lot of euphoria about AI, but not necessarily a lot of AI adoption, but yet we're building the infrastructure. So I think that there's a lot of folks trying to get ahead of the curve on AI, and that's driving a lot of their growth. So it's going to be very interesting to see where this all goes.
So I guess I want to keep on this AI trend for a minute, because I've heard a lot of conversations is that people are they're very excited about it, but I don't know if companies, they want to use AI, but one, are they ready to implement AI? And do they know kind of where they're going, or they're just still trying to figure out, let's get AI in the mix. We want to be a part of this.
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, people, like I said, the euphoria is there. They don't want to be left behind. They don't want to miss the boat. But I'll speak for some of the clients and the companies that I've spoken to. They don't yet really have a grasp on how they're going to implement AI. And to your point, you asked a great question, Jackie. Are they ready to implement AI? The answer is, in many cases, unfortunately not. Many of them lack some of the infrastructure to be able to actually implement AI solutions and be able to take advantage of that. So AI requires data. Right. So gaining access to that raw data to effectively use AI is a key. And in a lot of cases, what we find when we go to implement one of these solutions is they don't yet have the connectivity and infrastructure to the factory floor systems that are necessary to do what they want to do. Good for us, because that's where we come in and enable that and help them put in what they need and get those systems connected so they can build their digital layer and take advantage of AI. But no, to answer your question, and that's why I think a lot of these AI projects I mentioned earlier, 90% of them, they say don't go forward. I think these kind of roadblocks companies hit, and it kind of stymies them.
So this is, like both of you said, there's like a real shift towards AI. What would you say are some of the other big shifts that you saw in 2025 in terms of client needs or expectations?
So I without a doubt, the tariffs put just an overall overhang on, or hangover, one might say, on the industry. The concept that we didn't know what was going to occur, you didn't know what your cost of goods was going to be, I think made a lot of people hesitant about where they were going to invest. As we've been talking about AI, that dominated the C-suite of conversation, coupled with tariffs. And that those were, if there were twin topics that were discussed in 2025, it was what's going to go on with tariffs, what's going to go on with the cost of my goods, and how am I going to leverage AI? And I think what we're coming out of 25 with is, okay, we now know where tariffs are. They've settled down a little bit, and the worst seems to be over. And with the midterm elections coming up, I think the general thesis out there is a lot of the tariffs are going to go away because they're tremendously unpopular. So there'll be a move away from tariffs as the year progresses, definitely not increased tariffs. So that allows our clients to start prepping and planning for 26. So I think that'll be a shift from 25 to 26. And then, as Fred was talking about, these AI projects that failed, I think a lot of people are going to shift to, okay, let me be a little more considered about how I do AI. Let's start to lay the building blocks for it. We do see some use cases, and Fred's been a part of some of those, that we have successes here and there, but they're definitely a rarity. Most of the executions that I see being discussed at the C-suite are back office implementations or marketing implementations or writing implementations. They're not on the floor decision making with AI, but we are seeing individual use cases for optimization leveraging AI. And I think as we build out the backbone of data that is necessary to make those decisions, that's where the investments will happen in 26. I know we're going to talk about 26 more, but I think that's the shift from a perspective of there's all this hype to, all right, how do I start making this a better reality in 26? Because it wasn't a great reality for most players in 25.
Right. So I think you touch with wanting to be able to implement AI more effectively. I think that leading to clients looking to become more cyber resilient and take steps forward on their digital transformation and a journey. Where do you suggest clients start for that in their facilities?
Right. So I'd say twofold. One, you opened with cyber resilience. So the first thing that you have to do is you need to have an inventory of all of your assets. So we are recommending to our clients, you do an OT assessment. And most factories haven't done a comprehensive OT assessment. They haven't mapped everything. They don't know how old everything is, what's falling off of support, what's a risk factor for them. So that's what we're recommending clients to do. And then you talked, the second part of that was digital transformation. There we get into digital twins. And, we're going to talk a little bit later in this session, hopefully, about emerging trends. I think digital twins is going to be a enormous growth opportunity over the next couple of years. And I think a lot more facilities are going to do that, because what happens is you do an OT assessment, you map everything that's in your facility. Well, you might as well at that point take the one extra step and build the digital twin. Why? Because now I have all of my assets in a format that I can look at, I can simulate against, I can emulate against. And as Fred articulated, you need data. And if you create a digital twin, which is attached to your equipment, which is providing real-time data, all of a sudden, that's the information that you will use for AI. So as we talk about getting ready for AI, it is getting all of the equipment in your area or all of the equipment in your facility mapped and understood, put into a digital twin, connected to real-time data. So now I'm ready to analyze and leverage that data for AI.
Fred, did you have anything to add?
No, not really. That was a pretty comprehensive combination. My mind went to exactly the same place. Was you got to start with an OT assessment. I mean, you have to understand what you have today before you can really map your journey. You know where you want to be, but if you don't know where you are today, it's very difficult, right? If all of us have used GPS, if you know you want to go to Niagara Falls, but it says enter your current location and you put unknown, it's going to have a hard time giving you a route to get there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And kind of playing off of that, are you seeing more convergence between IT and OT teams now? Maybe a part of that is the assessment, a part of that is just the way that we're looking at cybersecurity vulnerabilities in OT. Are there other drivers? Just curious on what you guys have been observing.
I'm seeing a real shift, actually, where, IT and OT have always been sort of very, there's been that kind of tension between the two groups, right? A lack of understanding. So I am seeing a little more convergence there. Definitely seeing a lot more attention given to the OT side of things. I mean, traditionally, it's not really even been part of the consideration set, or at best, it's been an afterthought. Now we're seeing companies specifically focus on their OT layer. Again, we talked about connectivity, but as Matt brought up, also from a cybersecurity standpoint. I can remember over the past few years, we've spoken to many folks about cybersecurity, and they never really took it seriously. But I think we're seeing a real shift in that. More and more things are happening where companies are getting hacked. They're getting locked out of their files, ransomware situations. So all of a sudden, it's starting to get very real for companies that thought that will never happen to me. And so it's opening a lot of folks' eyes. And so, yeah, we are seeing definitely more and more focus on cybersecurity and OT.
If we wanted to stay on the thread of IT, OT, and we're talking about the convergence, and I know that there's a lot of drivers for that, but any advice that you would give to companies that are planning for 2026 and how they might want to improve the relations between IT and OT?
Get Eric Medicki in a meeting with them.
Unfortunately, a mediator.
That has been my thing to a lot of customers, because ironically, so I guess to give you a serious answer to your question, is sometimes the best thing you can do is bring in a third party to bridge the gap. Because the truth is, when you have employees within the same company, there are natural tensions that exist, right? There's legacy issues. The easy way to do that is to bring in a third party, not necessarily to mediate, but to sort of help with bridging the gap. Because there are things where, IT departments get frustrated with the OT guys get frustrated with IT because they don't understand that it's not the same thing. What we've found effective is we've come in and sort of acted as that third party broker in the relationship. And fortunately, we have a lot of guys on our IT OT cyber team that are IT professionals by training and background, and some also that are more on the OT side. So they're able to come in and sort of mediate, for lack of a better term, because they understand the IT side and the way those guys think and the priorities they have, what's important to them. But they've worked on the OT side now long enough that they also understand what the differences are and the complexities of trying to take, the same switches and the same hardware and then apply them in an OT environment, and what is different about that. So we have found we've been very, very much able to bring those two teams together and get them to see the path forward on what we need to do. So that would be my best advice to those customers.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. The other thought that I have is we talk a lot about the scarier elements, right? Cybersecurity risk, vulnerabilities, obsolescence, but maybe it would be good to see what's the positives of IT/OT convergence and the positives of understanding your full IT/OT setup.
I was going to dive in on one of those benefits and maybe also a reflection on some of the changing technologies and landscape. There's been the conflict between IT and OT because they've been so foreign to one another.
Yeah.
And IT systems are all unified and OT systems are generally fragmented. You have these islands of automation. You have some islands within a manufacturing that aren't even connected to anything. And however, you now have the C-suite at most of these manufacturers wanting to have a holistic view of their operations. And although we talked about AI, I think it's still a very early stage. We want to be prepared for AI. I think that's going to be a theme for 26. What does it take for you to be prepped for AI? One of those steps is gathering all of your data off of your systems. And that's where we see unified name, UNS, and a number of other approaches to how do I contextualize and how do I normalize the data that I'm pulling off of all of these machines. So if there was a reason for a convergence in IT and OT, it's that. It's now you have all of these OT machines needing to provide information in a standardized format that can be analyzed. And now you're actually reaching a spot where the IT guys are like, oh, actually, I understand that. I don't understand your equipment. I don't understand how it works, but I do understand wanting all of your information in one spot in a format that we can analyze. And I think that, to Fred's point, finding a third party who can help bridge that gap, who can help explain how to do that, and who can help pull all of this information together. Because in an IT network, generally things are homogeneous, so it's relatively easy to gather the information. Whereas in an OT network, you have lots of disparate and different hardware, different software, and you're trying to bring all this data together. That's going to be one. I think that was a rising and emerging trend in 25. I think that will be an even larger trend in 26. And these things are all interrelated. We talked about creating a backbone of information that you can base AI decisions off of. We talked about the benefits of having a digital twin. And when I talk about a digital twin, just so everybody appreciates this, there's the digital twin, which is call it the Gen 1 digital twin, which, hey, I recorded everything. So that's necessary. You got to go do an OT assessment and gather all your information. Then you need to put it in a model. But the key is to connect that model to real-time data so that you have a real functioning live view of your factory, but in a digital format. Because then you can take all the data that comes out of there, you can normalize it, you can start looking at it, you can start simulating it, you can start emulating what might happen in one occasion or another occasion, and then you can apply AI to that. And you can even apply AI offline. So this is, as we talk about applications of AI, the nirvana is, and the promised land is, you have AI making decisions on the floor. That's great. But a step before that is, I normalize all my data, then I allow an AI engine to say, how do I optimize this? That not in live execution, but in a simulation. What if I change this? What if I change that? And the AI engine can then recommend, here's a better way to do your process. Mm-hmm. You can then simulate. What if we did what the AI engine recommended? How does it affect everything in the facility? Are there any other pinch points? And then we can go back and make those changes. So this all loops back to, how do we continue to make a bridge between IT and OT? How do we continue to gather information and present that to the C-suite? Those are all trends that started in 25, and I think will accelerate tremendously in 26 as people chase this AI holy grail.
Matt started to talk about data, and it made me think of the concept of manufacturing intelligence or business intelligence. Those two terms are sort of used interchangeably depending. And I was curious from both of you, what applications for MIBI, whichever you want to call it, are you seeing for companies, or what are some really promising applications that should be on companies' radars?
Well, I think for me, what I think is one of the promising applications is starting out with something like a data lake, where we can take disparate sources of information. You've got information in your ERP system about costs. You've got information in your personnel systems associated with your labor costs. You've got plant floor data on your production capacity capabilities, all of that. You've got quality data. So you've got all of this different data in all of these different systems. How do you turn that into actionable information for the plant manager, the COO, the CEO, et cetera, to actually be able to look at all of this and make sense out of it? So by taking all of these different systems, putting all of that data into a data lake, and then overlaying a tool on top of that, like a Power BI, a Tableau, whatever it happens to be, now all of a sudden I can take everything from cost information and payroll information and quality information and production information that seemingly have nothing to do with each other, and I can begin to draw conclusions about how much it's costing me to make something, what my cost quality is. There's so many things I can use that blended information to start getting valuable insights into what's going on in my business that are going to help me make better decisions going forward. So to me, that's the untapped part of BI/MI right now.
I might piggyback on that. A specific execution is around power management. So as you gather information about the operations of your systems, the amount of energy being used by a drive, the amount of energy being used by a pump here, the amount of energy used to cool water over there or to do clean in place. We know that because of the rise of data centers and a variety of other things, there's going to be a pinch on power generation. There's going to be an escalation in the costs of energy. So being able to analyze what's consuming energy within inside of your facility and then optimizing for that is going to be a huge opportunity in MI. I mean, that's just as Fred said, you put all that information in a data lake and you then analyze it, and then you can decide it's best to chill my water from 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. and hold on to it because that's the optimal time. It's best to rev something up at 4 o'clock in the morning because I don't have a lot of energy usage. And then I'm going to rev that down at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when my energy is peaking, my energy costs are peaking. That's going to save everybody money, and it's going to balance usage on the grid. So that will become more and more important in 26 and 27 as we look forward.
Shifting gears a little bit, what skills do you think are going to be most in demand in system integration and automation, I guess kind of right now through, I guess, probably 26 and beyond, because generally people work for more than a year.
Well, in general, I mean, the space is going to get more and more demand around it. What we see, just in general, is this continual need for optimizing manufacturing, especially in North America, where we're seeing a lack of skilled employees to be in factories. So that pushes the demand for more automation, which means you're just going to need, in general, automation engineers. But if we look within automation engineering itself, I think you're going to see a spike in things like data scientists and folks who can manage data. Why? Because you've heard it, the theme around AI, you've heard this theme around manufacturing intelligence. We're trying to gather all of the information and then be able to utilize that information. And what's fascinating to me is for decades, there has been gobs of information available. Like PLCs have spit off and sensors have spit off tons of information for decades. The ability to consume all of that information and use it productively has been the limiting factor. I think those walls are breaking down. You've got lots of off-the-shelf software out there, whether it's something like an OSI or a Snowflake or something like that, or a Power BI that is allowing manufacturers to leverage all of that data. You now have protocols and standard communication protocols in which you can gather that information together, put it in a data lake, as Fred was talking about earlier, and contextualize that data. But we're still short on people who say, okay, now that I have these terabytes of data, what does it tell me, and how do I apply that inside of my facility? So I think you're going to see a lot of demand for data management and data understanding, which kind of loops back. We were talking earlier about the IT-OT convergence. It's all connected. So you see an IT-OT convergence. Why? Because we need to gather more data. As we gather that data, you're going to need more people to interpret that data. We'll see a big push there. I also think people forget, like the practical executions of running a manufacturing system, those are there too. So you need experts in vision systems. You need experts in conveyance. I think we're going to see just a bigger reliance on third parties to come in and provide that expertise. So we'll need a lot more folks who are understanding the connections between all these systems, so that we can say we don't need a human here, we don't need a human there, we can put a robotic arm in there, or we can optimize this process without a human having to get involved. That circles back to a general need for automation engineers. So that's what I'd say overall. But again, the specific driver will be data, and then I mentioned it earlier on digital twins. That's the precursor to the data. Setting that up so you have a industry 4.0, shall we call it, view of your facility where everything is connected and you can see it all happening.
We've got a couple more questions. Well, I should say a couple more formal questions. There are some fun surprise questions for you both at the end. But as we wind down, what's one lesson from 2025 that industry leaders should be carrying into 2026?
You're not ready for AI. That's my number one lesson to all the players. You want it. You talk about it in the C-suite, but most manufacturers are not ready for it. So If you were going to carry something out of 25 into 26, it wouldn't be I'm going to put AI in. It's going to be I'm going to get ready to put AI in my facility.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an excellent point. Yeah. And when you do want to implement AI, understand up front what it is you want AI to do. And most importantly, be realistic. I think everyone is viewing AI right now as this Pollyanna solution that's going to solve all their problems. It's not. Maybe someday, right? But it's early in the evolution of AI. So, one of the other reasons I think that statistic exists of 90% of AI projects fail is I think people go into this with completely unrealistic expectations about what AI is going to accomplish and the value that they're going to derive from it. So I think, to Matt's point, first, make sure you're ready for AI. And then second, crawl, walk, run. Don't try to run a marathon as your first. You might want to start with a 5K. That would be my best advice.
I think that's great advice.
Small steps to get ready for AI.
Or a 5K.
What about mom? Right? Baby steps.
Jen is right. I do always like to end on a few fun questions. If you could automate one thing in your life, what would it be?
I totally have the answer.
Ooh.
Weed whacking. I live on a lot of property, and weed whacking is the bane of my existence. So if I could automate just one thing in my life,
that is a good answer.
They have not invented a Roomba for weed whacking yet. This is insane.
They have automated lawnmowers, but they have not come up with an automated weed whacker. So, but I'm hopeful.
I'm sure we can find you an automation engineer to get the Bushwhacker 9000 automated to drive around for you.
What about you, Matt?
Oh my God, I would automate my travel planning. I know AI supposedly can do it. God knows it needs to happen faster because it's a plague for me.
I like both of those answers. Mine is always laundry. I would love if someone could do my laundry and including put it away.
Have you seen the robots that fold the laundry? That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I have not, but I feel like I maybe need to invest in this.
Let's be honest, tossing it in the washer and moving it to the dryer is not the hard part. It's the folding.
It's the folding.
It's
My
the
wife
folding
away.
and then they
I'm
live
like,
in
I did the
laundry
laundry. She goes,
for
no, you didn't.
months.
You took it out of the dryer and piled it on the bed. That is not doing the laundry.
I love that she called you out for that. Good for her.
Calls me out for everything.
What is one lesson you've learned the hard way in your career?
There's an old saying. I think it's called the Serenity Prayer. But the concept is to understand the things that you can't change, to have the courage to change the things you can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And God knows that is a lesson learned the hard way, because you can bang your head against something or stress out about something that you just can't change. And to be able to prioritize your day and say, these are the things that are inside my control, and I'm actually going to make a change with them. That's if you can master that, you will be much more successful in your life.
It's really good. I would agree with that. That's definitely one I learned the hard way as well.
All right. I have one, maybe two questions, but I feel like the last one's kind of super easy. But how would you describe your job to a 5-year-old?
I do it all the time. I say we program the machines that are going to take over the world.
Skynet.
That's not actually what we do, but that is how I explain it to small children.
5-year-old is excited about that, I will say. My kids came into the Westchester office at one point when we had our robot P3 out, and they still talk about it. They thought it was very cool. So they're on board.
I would say that we do everything from help companies to make medicines that help people to keeping the cloud cool for your video games and streaming movies.
Very important.
Keeping the cloud cool. I like it.
That's a good one.
All right. And this is my final question. What would you like to see us cover on future episodes of Beyond Tech?
More Matt chats.
I love all our discussions on the next technology that's out there. I think there are so many cool things going on in our industry, and there's just too much at any given time to understand them all, and finding a fun environment and a friendly way to learn something about a new technology is always good. So that's what I vote for. And you guys have done some great ones already, so keep them up.
I will second that. You guys have definitely done some great ones. They are fun to watch. I enjoy both watching them and being part of them. For me, I would say I would love to learn more about what's important to clients. I mean, we have our perspective on what's important to clients, what we think is or should be important to them. I'd love to see y'all actually interview some clients and actually hear from them in their own language. What are they, exactly what are they thinking? What are they working towards? And what's really important to them? I mean, what is their number one thing? To your weed whacking, if you could automate one thing in your life, what would it be? I mean, my weed whacking, if you could automate one thing in your life, what would it be? I would want to know, for them, if you could fix one thing in your facility that would make your life easier, what would it be?
Yeah. So we've got a couple potential
I hope
interviews
we'll
in
be
the
able
works.
to make that happen, because I've got a couple leads. I just gotta chase them down.
All right, Matt, Fred, it's a pleasure as always. Appreciate your time, appreciate your insights, and really looking forward to seeing what we can all do in 2026. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Jen.
Thanks for having us, Jen. Thanks for having us, Jackie.